Hello everyone, welcome once again to my YouTube channel. My name is Benga Adeyemo. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer and I'm also a Power BI developer. I bring to you once again a very interesting topic today. We are going to be exploring different DAX functions in Power BI that you can use in creating semi-additive measures. So what do I mean by semi-additive measures? Semi-additive measures are measures that are created by referencing semi-additive tables. Now, there are different types of fact tables that we have. We have the periodic snapshot fact table, we have the accumulating snapshot fact table, we have the semi-addictive fact table, we have the addictive fact table, we have the non-addictive fact tables, right? But I'm not really going into details of these different types of fact tables today. I want to focus on the semi-addictive fact table. So when I say semi-addictive fact table, let me give you an example of a semi-addictive fact table. Let's take a good example, a good instance of your stock balances table or your inventory table. You know that, for example, on that kind of table, you can see something like June 1. June 1, your stock balance is 160. June 2nd, your stock balance is 150. It means that 10 of the product or the 10 quantity of the product in your warehouse has been taken away, right? When you have new stock coming to the warehouse, then your stock balance is going to increase, right? So imagine me adding the 160 of the first day together with the 180 or 170 or 140 of the second day. It doesn't make any business sense. I'm adding up numbers that are not supposed to be adding up, right? Because it's a plus or minus. It's a plus or minus. You are not supposed to be adding those kind of numbers together. So imagine you went to a bank and you collected your bank statements, right? And let's now assume that this your bank statement is on an Excel spreadsheet, right? And maybe June 1st, right? I'm using June, sorry, or let's say January. Let's say January 1st, for example, your account balance is $160, and by the 2nd of January, because you maybe you paid for something online or you bought something in a maybe probably in a store, right? And you see that now you have $140. You spent $20 out of the 160 by January 2nd. Now because you spent money, that was why your account balance went below $20. That is how much you spent, right? So these kind of transactions cannot be added together. It doesn't make any business sense to add those kind of transactions together, right? Because they show plus and minus, right? Anytime there's a deposit on the account, then your account balance increases, and anytime you spend money or you withdraw money from that account, then the account balance will definitely reduce, right? So that is an example or a way I can explain semi-addictive tables for you to understand the meaning of semi-addictive tables, right? So now let's talk about creating semi-addictive measures from semi-addictive tables. Now let's take a good example of closing balance, right? Look at my screen, you'll see closing balance, I have opening balance, I have last non-blank, I have first non-blank, and I also have balance at the end of the period, and I have average over period. So we are going to be exploring all of these things. Now, closing balance, what does closing balance mean? With the closing balance, the DAX function rather, what it does is that it shows the value in a time period. The opening balance on the other side shows the value, the first value in a time period. So the closing balance shows the last value in a time period. The last non-blank, it shows the last non-blank value in a time period. The first non-blank, on the other hand, shows the non-first non-blank value in a time period. Now we have balance at the end of a period. This is useful in both the financial sector or in stock scenarios. We are going to be using the last date time intelligence function to achieve the balance at the end of the period. And we're going to be looking at some similarities between all of these different DAX functions that we are using to achieve the semi-additive measures, right? Then we have average over period, right? We are going to be using an iterative function called AVERAGEX to look at the average over a period of time. So let's dive straight into my Power BI desktop so that we can understand how all of these functions how they work, right? So now I have my Power BI desktop opened. The next thing I'm going to be showing you, I have two tables here. I have the stock table that has only three columns: the dates, the item, and the stock level. I also have the calendar table that I have the dates column, I have the month year column, and I also have the sort column. I will explain what that means so that we can understand it. So let me go to my table view, and this is the stock data. The stock data is the stock data for 10 month period, starting from the 1st of June 2024, right? And I have the item. I have three items in the warehouse: item A, item B, and item C, right? I also have the stock level, right? I have the stock level for different days for different items that I have in the warehouse. And let me go to my calendar table. In my calendar table, I already have the date column, right? So this calendar table was created based on the minimum and the maximum date of the stock data, right? Based on the minimum and the maximum date of the stock data. So you see that I have the first variable here, the minimum date, which is equals to the minimum date or in the stock, in the stock table, I mean the date column in the stock table, right? And also based on the maximum date in the date column in the stock table, right? And I'm returning, calendar min max. So that settles it all. Then my data model, I already have the relationship created between the stock data and the calendar table based on, let me show you that, it's based on the date column that are similar to the two tables, both the stock table and the calendar table. And I have a many to one relationship. So I'm laying down this foundation for you to understand exactly what I want to do today. So let's start. Let's start with what do I have on my slide? Let's start with the closing balance, the opening balance, and the closing balance. So now I'm going to bring in my matrix table. You all know I love using matrix table, this kind of scenario, right? And in my calendar table, don't forget that I have the month and the year column. This is the DAX formula I used to create that. I said format calendar dates as months. That one gave me as MMM. That one gave me the three letters you are seeing here. That is the month name, and it should, the hand here is to join it together with the year of this date column in the calendar table. So that returns the year. So altogether, I have the month name and the year all together. And then I created this column called sorts, right? I created it by merging, or let me say concatenating the year together with the day number, the year together with the day number, or sorry, the month number rather, together with the month number, not day number, together with the month number of these particular dates on each row, right? So that it will be easy for me to sort the month year based on this sort column. So I'm using this to sort it out, right? So that I have everything arranged in January to December kind of arrangement, right? So now that I have this, I'm going to bring in my month year inside my matrix table, and you can see that it is well arranged. It is well arranged because I used this sort column to sort, say sort by column. I know. I mean, I went to my month year column and I said it should sort by the sort column. Right, should arrange it well for me according to uh the normal calendar arrangement. So that is what I have there. So I can go to my format visual here, and I can probably increase the size of the fonts so that you guys can see clearly what I'm about to do, right? So what again do I need to do here? I have my row. Okay, do I need to increase this also? Oh, that is not where I have to increase. Do I say column headers? Do I need to increase it in the column headers? Yes, it's in the column headers that I have to increase it. So this one looks good, everything looks good, everything looks fine. So the next thing I want to try out is the opening balance and the closing balance that I have on my slide. I'm going to be using the closing balance month DAX function, and I'm going to also be using the opening balance month DAX function. Right? Let's go ahead. So you know what I like to do? I always like to create a separate table that I will have all my measures on that table. So I'm going to call this ash DAX, right? I'm going to call it ash DAX. I'm going to click on load. I'm going to load it. Then I will put all my measures inside that table, right? That I just created, right? So I click on hash, the ash DAX table, and I click on new measure. I click on new measure. So let's start with opening balance. Let's start with the opening balance. So let me make this a little bigger so that you guys can see clearly what I'm doing. Oh, I hope it's bigger now. and I'm going to say opening balance month, because I'm looking at things in terms of months, right? So opening balance month, and I was going to say sum. What do I want to sum? My stock, because I have different items, right? So I have different items for one particular date. So I'm doing sum of months for stock level column in the stock 10 months data table, right? So I click on this and I close my brackets here, and I'm going to reference my calendar and date column, calendar table and my date column, and I close the brackets and I press enter. So this is going to give me the opening balance. Now I can drag this here, right? And now I can see the opening balance. Now something happened. You will see that before I dropped in this opening balance, I had June, because my calendar table and the stock data is starting from the 1st of June. So when I drop the opening balance, you will see that the June, I can't see the June again. I'm only seeing starting from July. I'm going to explain why I'm seeing that. I'm going to explain to you. So the way opening balance works, the opening balance month DAX function, the way it works is that it looks at the closing balance for the previous month, and that would be the opening balance for a new month, right? So let's go on. Let me bring in closing balance first, before bringing in the opening balance, so that you understand how closing balance and the opening balance, you understand how they work. So I'm going to right click again. I'm going to click on new measure, and this time around it's going to be closing balance, which is equals to the closing balance month, the closing balance month, the sum of the stock level column in the stock table, right? Then I'm going to reference my calendar dates, right? And I will press enter here. Now let me bring in the closing balance first. So I'll bring in the closing balance, right? You'll see that this is the balance as at the end of the month for this particular month that I have here, right? Then I'll bring in the opening balance now. I'll bring in the opening balance now. And now you see that the closing balance for the previous month is the opening balance for a new month. So that is how the opening balance works. It looks at the sum of the closing balance for the previous month before that month, and that will be the opening balance for another new month. So 374 is the closing balance for June 2024, and that is the opening balance for July 2024, and so on and so forth. So, for example, the closing balance of 373 for July is the opening balance for August 2024. So the closing balance of one previous month is the opening balance for another new one. So that is the way the opening balance and the closing balance, that is how they work. Now, let's explore some other DAX functions that we are going to be using in creating our semi-additive measures. Let's go back to the slide. Now we have last non-blank and we have first non-blank. So how does this two work? The last non-blank gives us the last non-blank value in a time period. So the DAX function is last non-blank value, last non-blank value, and we have first non-blank value, right? That's the DAX function we are going to be using in creating this semi-additive measure. So let's start with the first non-blank. Let's start with the first non-blank. So let's see how it works. So I'm going to, okay, let me see that. Okay, I'm going as I planned. So I'm going to go back to my HashDAX table, right? And I'm going to call it post non-blank plus non-blank value, right? So that is going to be first non-blank value. There's a difference between first non-blank and first non-blank value. The two are different, but I'm not going to be talking about first non-blank today. I'm only going to be talking about the first non-blank value, right? First non-blank value, I'm going to bring in the calendar date. You know that this one is different from the opening and the closing balance in terms of the way I'm writing my DAX expression, right? So I have my calendar date, comma, and what is my expression? My expression is the sum of the stock level column in the stock data table, right? And I can close my bracket now, then I press enter. right? And I'm going to bring in the first non-blank value. So how does this work? So how this works is that it's going to sum the stock level for a particular month, right? Sorry, for a particular for the first day in relation to the calendar table that has stock balance. So let me explain what this means. So let's assume that maybe in July, for example, the way we built our calendar table, we set the minimum date and the maximum date in the stock table. Let's now say that there are some months that they don't have stock balances for the first of the month. They do not have stock balances for the first of the month, right? So us instead of us saying blank, that is there's nothing in the first day of the month, what this first non-blank value will do is that it will go to your stock table in relation to your calendar table and look for the first date that has a value in it, and that will serve as your first non-blank value. So for some particular month that the stock the data, they started capturing the stock data from maybe the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth of that month, right? So instead of it returning blank because there is no stock level captured for the first day of that month, that is what the first non-blank value function is going to help us to resolve. So it's going to go to that data and look for, right, the first and look for the first date that has a stock value and return the stock value of the first date that has the stock value in that month. I hope I'm not confusing you guys with my explanation, but that's like the simplest way I can explain it, right? So the first non-blank value, in case there are months that does not have stock level or stock value captured for those first date of the month. So it's going to look at the first date of that month that has a stock value captured, a stock level captured, and it's going to be the first, uh, value for stock for that particular month. So that is what the first non-blank value is going to be doing for us. Now let's take it. So the opposite of this is the last non-blank value. So in case there are some months that probably there is no stock value captured or there are no stock balances captured for the last dates in that month, but maybe the last date they captured the stock level. So, for example, in February now, maybe the last date they captured the stock level is February 20th. And if you just apply maybe last dates, it might start showing you blank. But when you use last non-blank value, it's going to look at the last date that has a stock value captured in the context of that month in relation to your calendar table, because your calendar table is the one that is doing that filtering. It's filtering the stock table, right? So let's go and say new measure. I'm going to say new measure, and this one is now going to be last non blank value. We now say is equals to last non blank value, right? Calendar dates, and it's going to be the sum of the stock level column in my stock table, right? Close this, then I drag this again, and now I have the last non-blank. Now you will see that the closing balance and the last non-blank, right, is giving us the same value. This is because we probably have stock balances captured at the end date of each month, right? Because if not, closing balance will probably be showing us empty for some particular dates, right? Because they did not capture the stock level but the stock balances up to the last date in that particular month. So that's why you see that the last non-blank value and the closing balance are showing the same thing. So you understand what last non-blank value will do, and the situations or the scenarios where you are going to be using the last non-blank value instead of using closing balance, right? So that is the way it works. Okay. Now let's go to another one that we have here. Balance at the end of the month. That one is for when we use the last date. Let's say based on the last date. So let's see how that works. So I'm going to go to new measure. So I'll just call it balance. Let me just put it in brackets. End of period. Balance end of period is equals to let's say calculate the sum of the stock level in the stock table, right? And I will say last date. I usually use this function a lot. It's very, very interesting to use based on because the semi-additive table, fact table. So you are just capturing the last date, right? So last date, and I will say, because my calendar table is the one that is relating to that table, my calendar date, then I will I'll close bracket one more time, and I'm going to press enter, right? So now I can drag this balance end of period, right? And I will see that it's the same thing with both closing balance and non-blank, last non-blank value. And when I use the last date, so the numbers are the same because of what they do. But don't forget that you should understand the reason why we use last non-blank value in cases where the last date data is not captured for that last date in relation to the calendar table, right? So, and same thing applies to first non-blank value also, when there's no data captured in the first date of that particular month in relation to the calendar table that we have created. So the last one that we're going to be looking at is the average over period. So for example, we want to see what is our average stock in June. What is our average stock in June? What is our average stock in July? What is our average stock in August? So how do we do this is by using iterating function called AVERAGEX. So what that is going to do is that it's going to go to every row in our stock table, right? And because we have one particular date appearing several times, right? So what it's going to do is that it's going to sum up. It's going to sum up. So let me show you this so that you understand better what I'm saying. So if I have used only average on my stock table, don't forget that I have 3 items. So if I say average, it's going to be average per row and not average per day, right? It's not going to do the average on a daily basis. So that's not what I want. So what I want for it to do is that I want it to sum up the stock level for each day, right? And probably give me the average per day. So for example, so what I want to do now, let me tell you what the logic is. The logic is that it's going to sum up the stock level for each day, right? And divide it by the number of days that has values in that month, number of days that has stock level in that month. So for example, maybe June is 30 days, for example. It will sum up the stock level for each day and divide it by the number of days in June. So that is what this average X is going to do for us in this scenario. So now I'll go back to my report view and I will say new measure, and I will say new measure, and I will just call this average per month. Average stock level in that month is equals to average X. Oh, sorry, average X, right? Average X. Then the next thing I'm going to say is values, right? Values, what? Values calendar dates, because it's like for each day in the month, right? Values calendar dates, comma. I move to the next line. I always like arranging. Oh, it's blocking me. It's like arranging my that expression like this. And now to now be calculate, right, the sum of stock level, in the stock data. I close my brackets, one more time, and I press enter. So let me explain what I'm doing here. So average X is an iterator, right? What it's going to do for me is that I want to know the average stock level per each month. But because I have different dates, one date repeating, right, in my stock data. So what I'm going to do is to use average X and with the values so that it can sum up the stock level for each day, right? So the logic is that it's going to give me the stock level, the sum of stock level for each day in that month, and it's now going to so what it's going to do is that it's going to sum up that stock level, right? And it's going to divide it by the number of days in that month, right? And with that, I can have the average stock level that we have in that particular month. So maybe June 1, I had 200. June 2, I had 160. June 3, I had 140. June 5, I had maybe 260. Things like that. So I want to say the average that I had in a month as per stock level for that particular month, right? So that is what I'm going to do. So I need uh a unique list of the days, because if I don't use these values, because I have different one date that is repeating itself, right? So it's not going to give me the answer properly. The answer is not going to be correct if I do not use averages and values together in this manner, right? So now that I have this, I'm now going to drag it here now, and now you can now see the average stock level that we had in these different months. So guys, I have come to the end of my video today on how you can explore different DAX functions to create semi-additive measures on semi-additive fact tables. I would like you to subscribe and like this video. Share this video with your friends. You don't know who this video might be impacting, might be helping them their work. It might be improving some other people's skills and improving your skills too. So please subscribe, like, and I would like to see you in my next video. Bye.